The morning started like any other for Kevin Martinez. He sat in the break room of Portland Fire Station 12, drinking coffee and checking the weather report. Summer in Oregon had been unusually hot this year, and the dry conditions meant more fire risks than usual. The station's alarm blared just as he took his last sip. Kevin jumped up with the rest of his team, sliding down the pole and suiting up in less than a minute. The dispatcher's voice came through clear. Apartment fire on Southeast Morrison Street. Possible people trapped inside. Kevin climbed into the fire truck beside his partner Sam Wright. As they raced through the streets with sirens wailing, he noticed something odd in the sky. A strange shimmer like heat waves on a hot road, but much higher up. "You see that?" Sam asked, pointing up through the windshield. Kevin nodded but stayed focused on the task ahead. The apartment building came into view, smoke pouring from its upper windows. But something wasn't right about the smoke. It had an unusual bluish tint, and the air smelled like mint and burning metal. The fire truck had barely stopped when a deafening roar filled the air. The shimmer in the sky turned into a massive shape, a ship, unlike anything they'd ever seen. It was crystal-like, with geometric patterns covering its surface, and it was falling right toward the burning building. "Everyone back," Chief Lisa Morgan shouted, but Kevin's eyes were fixed on the ship. It crashed into the top of the building, and the blue smoke doubled. The strange thing was, the ship seemed to be changing color, from a clear crystal to an angry red. Radio chatter exploded with confusion. Government agencies were calling in, telling them to stay back, wait for special teams. But Kevin heard something else, a sound that made his chest hurt. It was like glass cracking, mixed with what could only be screaming. "There are people in that ship," he said, checking his oxygen tank. "Or something like people." "Martinez, don't even think about it," Chief Morgan warned. "We have orders to wait." Kevin watched as parts of the ship started to melt. The screaming got louder, and now he could feel it in his head. Not just hear it, but feel it. Terror, panic, and pain broadcast themselves into his mind. "They're dying in there, Chief," he said, pulling on his mask. "They're scared of the heat, really scared. I can feel it somehow." Before anyone could stop him, Kevin grabbed an extra oxygen tank and ran toward the building. The heat was intense, more than usual, and the blue smoke made the air shimmer in strange ways. But he'd been running into burning buildings for 12 years, and fear wasn't going to stop him now. He reached the building's fire escape and climbed quickly. The metal was hot through his gloves, but he kept moving. As he got closer to the ship, the mental screaming got stronger. He could sense them more clearly now. 3 minds, filled with such terror of heat that it almost made him stop. Almost. The ship had crashed through the roof, and 2 floors below it. When Kevin reached the impact site, he saw them. 3 beings made of crystal-like material, their forms already starting to lose shape in the heat. They huddled together, their surfaces turning from clear to red to an alarming white color. One of them reached out with what looked like an arm. Images flashed through Kevin's mind. Their homeworld, a place of eternal winter, where their crystal bodies thrived in the cold. They had never known heat like this. Their rescue protocols never considered temperatures that would melt their bodies. Kevin stepped forward, his training taking over. "I'm here to help," he said clearly, wondering if they could understand. More images filled his mind. They understood. They were just too terrified to move. A creaking sound from above warned of structural failure. Kevin had maybe 5 minutes before the whole thing came down. He looked at the 3 alien beings, their crystal forms trembling with fear, and made a decision. Orders or not, he wasn't leaving anyone behind, human or otherwise. High above Earth's atmosphere, Commander Violate watched the disaster unfold through the main viewing screen of the Zarkax flagship. The commander's crystalline form sparkled with stress patterns as data streams showed the rising temperatures around the crash site. 3 of their best scouts were trapped in that inferno, and there was nothing their advanced technology could do about it. Maximum safe approach temperature exceeded by 400%, reported the rescue coordinator. Our ships would begin to break down before reaching the crash site. Sil-8's surface rippled with frustration. The Zarkax had mapped 1,000 worlds, but Earth's heat made it nearly impossible for them to operate here. They had chosen the wrong day to attempt first contact, not accounting for the local summer season. New movement on the screen caught the commander's attention. A small figure in thick protective gear was climbing the building's metal structure, heading straight for the wreck. Magnify that image, Sil-8 ordered. The screen zoomed in on what their data identified as a human emergency responder. The beam's thermal signature was incredibly high by Zarkax standards, yet it moved with purpose through the heat. Impossible, whispered one of the bridge officers. The temperature there would liquidate our strongest metals. The human reached the crash site. Through the scout ship's surviving sensors, the bridge crew watched in amazement as the figure began communicating with their trapped crew members. Kevin's voice came through their systems, translated automatically. I'm going to get you out, but you need to trust me. Can you move at all? The scouts' terror broadcasted clearly through their psychic link. The bridge crew felt it too. The paralyzing fear of heat that was encoded in their species' very structure. Yet this human stood in the middle of it, somehow staying focused despite sharing their fear through the link. Local authorities are demanding we respond, said the communications officer. They're asking about our intentions. Several of their military units are approaching orbit. Sil-8 barely heard the report, fascinated by the human's actions. The firefighter had taken out some kind of cooling equipment and was spraying it around the scouts, creating a path through the flames. Our data suggested humans were primitive, Sil-8 said softly. Yet they casually walk through temperatures that terrify us. They've turned our greatest fear into a tool. The commander watched as Kevin worked to free the scouts. The humans' movements were efficient, practiced, as if running into burning wreckage was normal. For them, Sil-8 realized, perhaps it was. Through the psychic link, the bridge crew felt something new from their scouts. Not just fear now, but amazement. The human was experiencing their terror of the heat, yet kept working. They felt Kevin's own fear too, but it was different. Controlled. Channeled into action, rather than paralysis. Send message to all Earth authorities, Sil-8 decided. Inform them we mean no hostile action. Request permission to land support vessels once the temperature has been controlled. And, the commander paused, crystalline surface shifting to show respect. Express our gratitude for their emergency responders' assistance. The human had almost reached the exit point with the first scout. The crystalline being's surface was stressed but stable, saved by quick action and the cooling spray. 2 more trips would be needed for the others. Study everything about this, Sil-8 ordered. Their protective gear, their techniques, their ability to function despite environmental hazards. We've discovered something remarkable here. The bridge crew continued monitoring as Kevin went back for the second scout. Their sensors detected multiple structure failures imminent in the building, yet the human kept working. It challenged everything they thought they knew about courage. Commander, the science officer spoke up. I believe we should reconsider our assessment of this species. Their technological level may be lower than ours, but they have developed something perhaps more valuable, the ability to master their fears. Sil-8 watched as Kevin reached the second scout. The commander's crystalline form hummed with a new frequency, respect. Kevin stepped carefully through the burning wreckage, supporting the second crystal being. The alien felt light despite its size, as if it were made of hollow glass. Through their mental connection, he sensed its terror starting to ease slightly as they moved away from the worst of the heat. The building groaned around them. Kevin knew that sound. It meant they had minutes, maybe less. He had already gotten 1 alien to safety, but 2 more remained. His oxygen tank gauge showed half empty, and his suit's temperature sensors were screaming warnings. Sam, he called into his radio, I need more cooling spray at the exit point. This heat is doing something strange to their bodies. Already on it, Sam replied. But Kevin, the chief says the building's about to go. You need to move faster. Kevin reached the window where they had set up the rescue ladder. Sam waited below with cooling equipment, ready to help the alien down. The crystal being hesitated at the window, its fear spiking through their mental link. It's okay, Kevin said softly. The ladder holds me in my gear, and I'm much heavier than you. You can do this. The alien moved slowly onto the ladder. Its crystal surface had started to cloud over from heat exposure, but the worst damage seemed to have stopped. Sam helped guide it down while spraying cooling mist. Kevin didn't wait to watch. He turned and ran back into the building, following the path he'd already cleared twice. The mental connection with the last alien was growing weaker, which worried him. He pushed through the smoke, finding his way by memory and touch. The final alien lay where he had left it, partly hidden under a fallen piece of their ship's crystal hull. Its surface had turned almost white from heat stress. Kevin felt its consciousness flickering like a weak radio signal. Stay with me, he said firmly, kneeling beside it. I'm getting you out. The piece of hull was heavy, but Kevin's adrenaline was pumping. He braced himself and lifted, just enough for the alien to pull free. As soon as it moved, he saw the problem. Part of its lower body had started to melt and reform, making it difficult for it to move. Kevin didn't hesitate. He scooped up the crystal being, surprised again by how light it was. The alien's surface was hot enough to feel through his protective gloves, but he held on tight. Its terror flowed into his mind, along with something else: gratitude. The path back seemed longer this time. Smoke had filled most of the spaces he had cleared before, and the building's creaking had turned into a constant groan. Kevin moved as fast as he dared, checking each step. The alien in his arms trembled with every movement. Through their mental link, Kevin suddenly got a warning. The alien had sensed something in the building's structure that his human senses couldn't detect. He jumped back just as a ceiling beam crashed down where he had been standing. Thanks, he said, meaning it. Working together, they might both get out alive. The window was just ahead when the floor shifted beneath them. Kevin ran the last few steps, his boots skidding on the tilting surface. He reached the window just as the floor began to give way. Jump, Sam yelled from below. Kevin leaped for the ladder, holding the alien tight against his chest. They hit the ladder hard, but he managed to grab a rung with one hand. Sam was already moving the ladder away from the building as sections of the wall began to collapse. They were only halfway down when the rest of the floor fell in behind them. Heat and debris burst out of the windows, but they were just far enough away. Kevin felt the alien grab the ladder with what seemed like hands, helping to hold on. Firefighters swarmed around them as soon as they reached the ground. The alien was quickly moved to a special cooling chamber that had arrived, while Kevin was inside. As the crystal being was taken to safety, it reached out one last time through their mental link. Kevin felt its message clearly, not just thanks, but a deep respect. Today, two species had learned something about each other and about courage. Kevin sat on the back step of the ambulance, breathing from an oxygen mask while the paramedics checked him over. The mental connection with the aliens hadn't broken after the rescue. Instead, it had grown stronger, like a radio signal getting clearer. Through this link, he felt the three rescued aliens recovering in their cooling chamber. Their terror of the heat was fading, replaced by curiosity about him. They were sharing their thoughts and memories with each other, trying to understand what had happened. Your vital signs are stable, the paramedic said, but we'd like to take you to the hospital for observation. That mental connection they're talking about, it's not something we've dealt with before. Kevin nodded but didn't move. The aliens were sending him images now, showing him their home world. He saw vast plains of crystal, glittering under the light of a distant sun. The temperature there never rose above freezing. Their cities looked like collections of natural crystal formations, beautiful but fragile. More memories flowed in. He experienced their first space flight, their joy at discovering other worlds. But every warm planet they found had been impossible for them to explore. They had developed amazing technology to study from orbit, but they could never walk on a warm world themselves. "They're trying to understand us," Kevin said softly, taking off the oxygen mask. "They want to know how we do it." Through the link, he began sharing his own memories. His first day at the Fire Academy, learning to control his fear. The training exercises in the burn building, where every instinct screamed at him to run, but he went in anyway. His instructor's words came back clearly. "Fear is normal. Courage is what you do despite the fear." The aliens absorbed these memories with fascination. Kevin felt their surprise as they realized humans weren't fearless. They were afraid, just like the Zarkax, but they had learned to work through their fear. A new presence entered the mental link. Commander Xylate, still in orbit, had joined the connection. The commander's thoughts were more organized, more formal than the rescue survivors. "We have never encountered beings like you." Xylate's thoughts came through clearly. "Our species evolved to flee from heat. The idea of willingly entering it to help others, it seems impossible to us." Kevin showed them more memories. A family rescued from a house fire, children carried out of danger, even a cat saved from a burning apartment. Each memory carried its own fear, but also determination and the joy of a successful rescue. "Fear is a tool," Kevin thought back. "It tells us when something is dangerous. But it doesn't have to control us. We can learn to act anyway when something matters more than our fear." The aliens shared their own revelation. They had always seen their fear of heat as a weakness, something that limited them. But through Kevin's experiences, they began to understand that facing fear could make them stronger. "Your species has much to teach us," Xylate communicated. "We have avoided warm worlds because we thought we could never survive there. But perhaps we can learn from you. Adapt as you have adapted." The mental link began to fade as the alien's strength returned. But before it broke completely, they shared one final memory with Kevin. The moment he had appeared in the burning wreck, seen through their eyes. In their vision, he wasn't just a firefighter. He was hope walking through fire, proof that fear could be mastered. The connection faded to a gentle hum in the back of his mind. Kevin looked up to see Chief Morgan standing nearby, watching him with concern. "You okay, Martinez?" she asked. Kevin smiled, still processing everything he had learned. "Yeah, Chief. I think I just helped build a bridge between worlds." Not bad for a morning's work. Around them, government vehicles were arriving, and officials in suits were gathering. But Kevin knew the most important work had already been done. Two species had looked into each other's minds and found not just fear, but the courage to overcome it. 1 week after the rescue, Kevin found himself sitting in a meeting room at Portland City Hall. The place was packed with government officials, scientists, and military officers. 3 Zarkax sat across from him in special cooling suits that let them move around in Earth's warm environment. The rescued aliens had recovered fully, their crystal forms clear and strong again. They wore name badges that translated their complex crystal language names into something humans could pronounce: Ray, Crystal, and Frost. Commander Xylate appeared on a large screen, joining from the orbiting ship where the temperature was more comfortable. "The Zarkax have made us an interesting offer," the government representative said. "They want to learn from our emergency services, particularly our firefighters. In return, they're willing to share some of their technology." Kevin watched Ray gesture with a crystalline hand. The alien's movements were smooth now, nothing like the terrified trembling he had seen in the burning building. The cooling suit hummed softly as it worked. "Your firefighter showed us something important," Ray said, its voice coming through a translator. "We have spent thousands of years running from heat, but you humans, you found ways to work with it, to master it. We want to learn this courage." Crystal stepped forward, its surface catching the light. "We have visited hundreds of worlds, but we never stay on the warm ones. We observe from orbit, using robots to explore. But after seeing what Kevin did, many of our people want to change this." Kevin remembered how it felt to share minds with them, to feel their terror of heat and their amazement at human bravery. "Your people are already brave," he said. "You just need the right tools and training." Frost, who had been the most badly hurt in the crash, spoke up. "That is why we are here. We want to create a joint training program. Your firefighters can teach us how to handle heat safely. In return, we can share our technology. Better cooling systems, stronger materials, safer ways to explore dangerous places." The government people started talking excitedly about treaties and agreements, but Kevin was watching the aliens. Their crystal forms sparkled with determination. Through the remaining trace of their mental link, he felt their honest desire to learn. "It won't be easy," Kevin said. "Learning to face your fears takes time, and heat will always be more dangerous for your people than it is for us." Commander Thiolate spoke from the screen. "We understand this, but your species has shown us that limitations can be overcome. Already, many of our young ones want to join this program. They dream of walking on warm worlds instead of hiding in orbit." The meeting continued as plans were made. The Zarkax would build a special training facility near Portland, kept cold enough for their people but with areas that could be safely heated. Human firefighters would help design training programs that worked for both species. "There's something else," Crystal said, turning to Kevin. "The mental link we shared during the rescue. Our scientists think it happened because of our extreme fear, but it taught us so much about each other. We would like to explore this connection further to help us understand each other better." Kevin smiled, remembering how that connection had felt. "I think that's a great idea. Fear brought us together, but what we learned from each other is much more important." As the meeting ended, Kevin watched the three aliens carefully walk outside. They moved slowly in their cooling suits, but they didn't panic at being on a warm planet. They were already changing, already growing braver. The government representative patted Kevin's shoulder. "You did more than rescue 3 aliens, Martinez. You might have just changed how 2 species see each other forever." Kevin nodded, thinking about the future. Somewhere on the Zarkax homeworld, crystal beings were preparing to learn about firefighting. And here on Earth, humans were about to learn about a whole new kind of courage, the kind that helps you overcome what you thought was impossible. 6 months later, Kevin stood in the new Interspecies Emergency Response Training Center just outside Portland. The building was a marvel of both human and Zarkax engineering. One half stayed at freezing temperatures for the crystal aliens, while the other half could be heated to simulate various emergency situations. Today was a big day. The first group of Zarkax trainees would practice in a heated environment. 20 crystal beings stood in their advanced cooling suits, watching Kevin nervously. These suits were much better than the first ones, designed with Zarkax technology, but built to human safety standards. "Remember what we practiced," Kevin said, walking along their line. "Your suits will protect you. Trust your equipment, trust your training, and most importantly, trust each other." Ray, now serving as his assistant instructor, stepped forward. The alien's crystal form had changed over the months of training, developing strange new patterns that their scientists said came from repeated heat exposure. "I was trapped in a burning ship," Ray told the trainees. "I thought I would die, but I learned that day that fear doesn't have to stop us. Watch your suit readings, follow the procedures, and remember, courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about doing what needs to be done anyway." Kevin opened the door to the training room. Inside, several small fires burned in controlled areas. The temperature was only a little warm by human standards, but to the Zarkax, it was like walking into an oven. The first trainee stepped forward, crystal surface shimmering with fear, but they didn't back away. One by one, the Zarkax entered the room. Their cooling suits hummed loudly as they worked to protect their wearers. "Good," Kevin said through their radio link. "Now move toward the nearest fire, just like we practiced. Your suits can handle much more heat than this." He watched proudly as the trainees moved forward. Some stumbled, some hesitated, but none ran away. Through the special mental training link they had developed, he felt their fear mixing with determination. Suddenly, one of the trainees' suits started beeping. A minor malfunction in its cooling system. The Zarkax froze, terror spiking through the mental link. But before Kevin could react, Ray moved to help. "Remember your emergency procedures," Ray said calmly. "Switch to backup cooling. That's why we have it. You're safe." The trainees' crystal hands shook as they pressed the backup switch. But they did it. The suit's warning stopped, and the fear in the mental link began to fade. "Well done," Kevin said. "All of you. That's exactly how we handle equipment problems. Stay calm, follow procedures, help each other." The training continued for an hour. By the end, every Zarkax had successfully approached a fire, used their new equipment to control it, and helped their teammates. When they left the hot room, their crystal forms were glowing with more than just heat. They were glowing with pride. In the cold section of the building, human trainees were learning too. They wore special heating suits that let them work in the freezing temperatures the Zarkax preferred. Both species were learning to help each other, to work in conditions they once thought impossible. "The first rescue teams will be ready soon," Ray said as they watched the trainees cool down. "Some of us have even started talking about building permanent bases on warm planets, not just orbital stations, but real ground bases with special cooling systems." Kevin smiled, remembering the terrified beings he'd found in that crashed ship. "You've all come so far. Pretty soon you'll be teaching us things about firefighting." "We already are," Ray replied. "Our crystal forms can sense structural problems before they're visible, and our cooling technology is making firefighting safer for humans too. We're learning from each other." A new group of trainees was arriving, both human and Zarkax. They would learn to work together, to face their fears together, and to save lives together. Kevin watched them greeting each other, no longer separated by their different needs and fears. "Ready for another class?" he asked Ray. The crystal being's surface sparkled with enthusiasm. "Ready. After all, courage is best learned together." 1 year after the crash that changed 2 worlds, Kevin stood on a platform at the grand opening of the first permanent Zarkax ground base on Earth. The building gleamed like a giant crystal in the morning sun, its cooling systems humming quietly as they kept the interior at the perfect temperature for its alien inhabitants. Beside him stood Ray, Crystal, and Frost, the 3 aliens he had rescued from the burning ship. They wore the newest version of cooling suits, so advanced that they looked almost invisible. Through their permanent mental link, which had grown stronger over the year, Kevin felt their joy and pride. Commander Violate had come down from orbit for the first time, protected by one of the new suits. The commander's crystal form caught the sunlight as they addressed the crowd of humans and Zarkax gathered for the ceremony. "1 year ago, we thought this was impossible," Violate said through the translator. "We believed we could never walk on warm worlds, never truly meet other species face to face. Then, a human firefighter taught us that impossible is just another word for something we haven't learned to do yet." Kevin watched as the first graduating class of the Joint Emergency Response Program marched forward. 50 Zarkax and 50 humans, all trained to work together in any environment. They wore special badges that combined the symbol of Earth's firefighters with the crystal pattern of the Zarkax Emergency Service. "These graduates have learned more than just emergency response," Kevin said when it was his turn to speak. "They've learned that courage comes in many forms. Sometimes it's running into a burning building. Sometimes it's facing a temperature that terrifies you. But always, it's about helping others when they need it most." The graduates demonstrated their skills, humans and Zarkax working together seamlessly. The aliens' ability to sense structural problems before they happened, combined with human adaptability, had created rescue teams unlike anything either world had seen before. A young Zarkax named Shine stepped forward to speak. 1 year ago, they had been a scared trainee who could barely approach a warm room. Now they moved confidently, even in Earth's heat. "Before we met humans, we saw our fear of heat as a weakness," Shine said. "But Kevin and the other instructors taught us that understanding our fears makes us stronger." Now we use that understanding to help others. When we sense danger with our crystal forms, we don't run away. We warn others. We protect. We save lives. The ceremony continued as more species began arriving. Other alien races that had stayed away from Earth, thinking it too warm or too dangerous, were now sending representatives. They had heard about the Zarkak's success and wanted to learn too. Ray touched Kevin's shoulder with a crystal hand. Through their link, memories flowed. The terror of the crash, the amazement of the rescue, the pride of the first successful training mission. We've received requests from 15 other worlds to start similar programs, Ray said. They all want to learn what you taught us. Not just about handling heat, but about facing fears, about becoming more than what we thought we could be. The crowd cheered as the graduates performed a rescue demonstration. Humans in heating suits worked smoothly with Zarkaks in cooling suits, each making up for the other's weaknesses. They moved like they had worked together all their lives. Kevin felt a deep satisfaction through the mental link. The 3 aliens he had rescued were now senior instructors, teaching their own people about courage. The impossible had become possible, then normal, then just the beginning of something even greater. You know what the best part is, Frost said, watching the demonstration. Now when we explore new worlds and find other species, we don't just see problems and dangers. We see possibilities. We see new kinds of courage to learn, new ways to grow stronger together. As the ceremony ended, Kevin looked up at the stars, visible even in the daylight. Somewhere up there, more ships were coming. More species wanted to learn about Earth's firefighters and the crystal aliens who had learned to face their fears. The galaxy was changing, one brave step at a time. Ready for the next class? Ray asked. Kevin smiled. Always. After all, courage is contagious.